Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to give you my crack at the top 10 most impactful cards of Dusk Till Dawn as a set. And we'll get right into it. So if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you. If you are a long-standing supporter, as always, y'all are amazing. Keep it up. Feel free to check out the Patreon and Discord down below and look for my daily uploads this month. So it took me some time to go through this, and originally the name of this video was going to be top 10 most powerful, but then I was like, you know what, there's really no way to measure that right now, at least in my opinion, even more than top 10 most impactful. And power, like technically, so like technically the figments, right, are the most powerful. I mean, they're four potentially most powerful, a lot of them, because of their on-hit effects, their on-play effects, the fact that they're 4 standing power things on the board, like all sort of stuff, right? Or you could just put legendaries, Crown of Province, Imperium Rapture, stuff like that. So I really want to do most impactful, to their class or to the set or to the archetype or to whatever. I thought that would be kind of like better, personally. So we went into here. I'm going to go one by one. I have them in different tabs here. The first one I wanted to go, and these are in no particular order, but I wanted to talk about them because I think they're insane. One is Lost in Thought. This card for both Prism and Jeremiah is actually insane. Let's talk about Jeremiah for a second. Jeremiah now has access to a 1-cost go again non-attack that makes an Ash because it costs 1. You're going to have to pitch for it. That says, look at target hero's hand, choose an attack action card. If you do, they put that card on the bottom of their deck and they create a ponder token. So yes, they create a ponder token, which isn't as nice, and it is a 2-block, but this essentially does what Dominia does for Dromai. Essentially, it serves the same purpose. You pay 1 resource, you make an Ash, you have go again, and you basically say, if you have a Popper in your hand, I'm taking it out, right? And it's just an insanely powerful card for an archetype that doesn't want you to pop their stuff. And at worst, you still get to, let's say they don't have a popper, but they have a really good attack, right? If a Fi has a Spreading Flames, or if a Katsu has a Surging Strike, or something like that, or a Briar, has something that is good, like a Swarming Gloom Veil, take that shit away, right? Like, it's just gone. It's so good in Dromai. And then in Prism, it's good too. In Prism, you're able to, again, take poppers out. You're able to take good attacks out. You're able to slow your opponent down from popping your angels. This card's just fantastic. Like, I think it's an automatic include both in Prism and in Jeremiah. I don't know why you wouldn't run this. Definitely Jeremiah. Jeremiah, this is like day 1 automatic include. It literally does what, yes, you give them the ponder, but this thing literally does what Dominia does by itself. So not too much to say about this card. Just this card's really good. I think it's one of the more impactful cards for Illusionists. You then have Figment of Protection, which we'll go back here real fast for Figment of Protection. When this legendary figment enters the arena, create a Spectral Shield token. So when it enters, it'll create a Spectral Shield, and then once per turn action, when this attacks, you may banish a card from your hero's soul. If you do, create 2 Spectral Shields. I think that this will be the most impactful figment for Prism as a whole, because it's going to make, over the course of its life, if you get to attack with it, 3 Spectral Shields. And since I can pop your angel by hitting you with a Kadachi if you choose not to block it, because it pops your ward if that's the only thing you have on the board. Making Spectral Shields is going to be so important because it's going to allow you to mitigate more damage and choose which ward is popped first or which prevention is popped first. And yeah, I think that'll just be the most useful thing for her to be able to like actually maybe make a board state with like 2 good figments on the board or something. I think Figment of Protection is going to be her most like impactful toolbox figment. There are more other powerful figments, like Erudition's extremely powerful. Judgment is extremely powerful against like different shadow heroes. Even Triumph and Tenacity have really good effects, but I think Protection is going to be the most impactful card figment that Prism has, in my opinion. Number 3, Widespread Annihilation. This card is just pretty nuts in Vincent specifically. It costs 4, so you have to get 4 rune chants in order to play it out, banish. But when the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes a card from their hand. So with Vincent's unpreventable damage, the way you play this card is you basically play out your whole hand to where this is the last card you play, so that your banished from hand doesn't really matter. But for your opponent, because you pay 1 life on a Shadow non-attack, and that now have an unpreventable rune chant, it's gonna, unless it's Prism, it's gonna hit them, and they're gonna have to basically mill a card. Super powerful. Off of a pump, this comes in for 9, and on hit, or if the rune chant hits, they mill a card. Like, insanely powerful. Basically, an auto like throw their whole hand at you card, which is really impactful and something that I think is going to be a staple in men's sets. It is her most powerful rune gate card by far, as far as effect and impact goes. So definitely think that this one is going to be a staple for a long time. Next one is Censor. This card is so bonkers. You could run this card in Uziri. I think Uziri is actually where this card is going to be most impactful. Or if you have any type of like slow fatigue list that wants to like slow down an opponent, like just coming back and smacking you. I think this is Uziri's impact, right? This, I think, goes in for Uziri now. It doesn't have natural go again, obviously, but you stealth this in, and you basically, one of two things can happen. One, you can name a card that you know is coming. Maybe you saw them arsenal a card, or like, I don't know, maybe it's a Lexi and the card is flipped, or maybe you kind of know it's in their hand. Maybe you know Bolton has a Lumina, and maybe they're not blocking your turn at all, and you're like, okay, they're about to Lumina me, right? Lumina Boomina. So this hits, I say, okay, you cannot play Lumina Ascension, which is super, super impactful, and it's basically kills their turn. Or you can tell Fi, like, even if you don't know what's in his hand, you're playing a Fi, like, you cannot play Art of War. If you play a Katsu, you cannot play Surging Strike, right? I think that there's a lot of cool interactions this can have. Lexi, you could say you cannot play Endless Arrow, or you cannot play Rain Razors, whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of cool interactions that this can do, and in Uziri, I think it's fantastic. It's amazing. It's a 3-block, 5 attack that you can stealth in, but you also can just play cold off like Tunic, and really slow down your opponent, or at the very least guarantee that your opponent is not going to play a power card, one of their power cards next turn. I think it's a really, really, really good card, and it's super impactful for Uziri. Next one is Levia Redeemed. We would not be talking this list without Levia Redeemed. It is the most impactful card in the set because it redefines how a hero is played. Levia Redeemed and the flip side of her both. It just changes what Levia can do, right? I'm still up in the air on how good Levia is actually going to be, but regardless, being able to turn off what makes Levia bad is super nice, and having some extra perks to go along with it. And the card is just amazing. It's going to bring more people to the class. It's going to change what people play, all this. So not much to say about this card from a stat perspective. Just from a play perspective, it's super impactful, and it's something that I think is going to be long-standing for a while. Next one is Imperium Rapture. This is more a competitive-based one, and yes, it's only for Prism, but this card, in my opinion, you cannot play Prism Advent of Thrones without this chess piece. You just can't. If a card with Herald in its name has been put into your hero's soul this turn, the first hero ability you activated this turn costs 2 less to activate. Once per turn instant, this gets ward 1 until end of turn. I think that, since Prism's ability to bring a Figment in costs 2, you basically say you play an attack with a Herald, it hits, it goes to Soul, and then you can activate her, go get a Figment for free. Her deck becomes so much less efficient without this chess piece, and I think if you're going to play Prism at a competitive level, you have to have this chess piece. So because of that, it's extremely impactful. It basically defines a class, in my opinion. I think Prism in general is like that. I think there's certain cards in New Prism where if you do not have them, you can't play the deck. That's just my opinion, which kind of sucks for newer players, but it's just how it is. It's very intertwined with its synergies. Next one, for a completely different reason, is Warmongers Diplomacy. This is a UPF card, right? Ultimate Pit Fight. Or this is Ultimate Pit Fight card. Starting with your hero to your left, each hero chooses War or Peace. If they choose War, the only actions they may play or activate during the next turn are weapon and attack actions. If they choose Peace, the only attacks they may play or activate during their next turn are non-weapon, non-attack actions. So the reason this is impactful is for several reasons. One, just for the fun aspect. UPF is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a social experience. And cards like this make the game more socially fun, right? Cards like this, cards like Good Deeds Don't Go Unnoticed, like the creator promos, stuff like that. I think that like just telling your like one, this is actually a pretty good card because you know what all your opponents are gonna do. But two, it just creates some funny interactions between people. And I think that this type of card defines what UPF is all about. And I think it's going to make people want to play UPF more. Like this card's going to make people want to play UPF, which again has super big impact on the game. So I love this card. It's fantastic. And it costs 0. It's a 3-block blue. Like they made the card actually playable, like good. Like it's not just like a complete meme card. The card's actually pretty good. So for a UPF. So I'm super excited about it, and I think that it's really impactful. Next one, Bequest the Vast Beyond for Visceral. I think it's so funny because they literally banned Scalata for good now, saying Scalata's never going to come back, but then they gave Visceral 3 Scalata cards. They did that because I think they want the essence of Scalata to exist in just Visceral because that's what it was originally created for, I think. And because of that, they basically gave an ode to Visceral players and said, yes, we're banning it for Runeblade as a whole in Scalata, and it's not going to be able because it's going to limit design space. However, we can keep it in Visceral. That way it doesn't limit our design space, but allows people to still play the card. Because this is literally Scalata in a card, and you can play 3 of them. So it basically means that like if you have a Drawn to the Dark Dimension that costs 2 less if you have 2 rune chants, right? It's free if you have 2 rune chants. If you have 1 rune chant and you play this card, it's for free. You also can make a rune chant off playing this card. There's a couple of different things you can do, right? If you already have 1 rune chant and you've already played a non-attack action, you play this, you make 2 rune chants, you can play an Amplify the Arc Knight for free. Like there's some cool stuff you can do. Helps diminish cost for other cards. Even like if you want to go like a more mid-rangey build or a more like go taller build with Ninth Blade or with Visceral's 5-cost Dominate that makes rune chants on hit, like you can make that cost less because it doesn't work for just cards that already have rune chant cost reduction. But what's good about this card is it stacks with cards that have rune chant cost reduction. So if Amplify the Arc Knight says this costs 1 less for each rune chant you control and it only costs 3, and you have 2 rune chants, then it's free because that stacks, right? It's 2 less on that and then 2 less on Bequest. So it stacks together, the official ruling for that. So really good card. It's really going to help Visceral just be able to pop off randomly. This will be a fantastic card to Arsenal and be able to like play like more go taller builds pretty easily. Next one is Iron Song Versus. This is going to help Dorinthia out tremendously. Once per turn action, your next sword attack this turn gets, when it hits a hero, create a courage token. So, like, there was a lot of times when I play Dory, at least, where I see her play something that doesn't have go again, or she plays out her first sword attack with no inherent go again. And I just let it go because I'm like, okay, if you give it go again, I don't want to block this, even overblock it, and you can somehow get it to hit, and then I'm screwed on your second swing and you get a guaranteed counter. So sometimes, especially as an aggro player, I'll just make Dory have it, right? If you don't have natural go again on your sword, I'm just going to wait and see what you have and then block your second one or do whatever, right? And I think that this, what this does is it basically says you're going to have to respect my first sword swing if I don't have go again or some on hit, because I'm going to pay 1 resource and say if it hits, I'm going to get a courage token. So that means my second one is going to get +1 already. It's going to be harder to block. And that's just one instance of someone who's not a warrior player playing against it that's going to make it a little bit more tricky. The other thing this can do is just sheer stack counters, right? If you already have a counter or 2 on your Dawnblade and then you play this, that means it's like if you have a counter on your Dawnblade going into the turn and you activate this on your first sword swing, you basically say, hey, if you don't block this, my Dawnblade's going to have 2 counters on it essentially for my second swing. So I think it does a lot for Dory, and it has Temper Block too. I think this is better than Rage Force Bracers for what Dorinthia wants to do, and it makes her a little bit more harder to block and a little bit more oppressive. Even on her off turns, like she can play this. Like even if let's just say she has a 1-card hand, a blue. That's all she has. She really can pitch for this, swing Dawnblade for 3. Let's say she has no counters, and say like, yes, you don't want to block this because there's nothing else coming. Let's say she didn't have her boots up, but if you don't block this, then I'm gonna basically have a counter in my next turn, right? Because courage is gonna pop and give me +1 for my first swing. So it has a lot of impact for Dory. I don't see it used as much in Bolton. I think it's definitely it is used in Bolton a lot. I'm not a Bolton player by trade, but I think actually for Bolton this could even be useful. I'm trying to think of what else Bolton would use. I think bracers is about the only thing, right? So this definitely could be used in Bolton as well. So it all depends, but I think it's a really impactful card for Warrior in general. Makes it a little bit harder to block and kind of go from there. Then you have Scowling Fleshbag. This is so good for Rhinar, and this helps so much. Rhinar's been wanting to intimidate on its opponent's turn as much as possible. I've always been thinking, like, what can they give Rhinar to make him more relevant? My initial thought is give him actual on hits, but if you give a deck that can make 2 of your cards disappear and on hit, that kind of gets scary really fast and could be really imbalanced. So also, your second thought is, okay, how can I slow my opponent down more? Well, this is the way to do it, right? Your opponent doesn't block you at all. Let's say you deal 20 damage on a Blood Rush turn. They have to respect you a little bit. They can't just hold all their cards because let's say a 5 plays an Art of War and they play their first big attack or even their second attack and you intimidate by defending with this and you knock out one of their hand. Let's say they Art of War without Arsenal and, they even off Tunic. They banish a card and they're up to 4 cards, and then they pitch to play their first attack or something, meaning they have 2 cards left. You just intimidate this, and boom, they have 1 card left in their hand. There's not much they can do after that. Or anybody, right? There's a bunch of different stuff you could do here. I think it's what this also allows you to do is, like, I think play around reactions. Like if you know someone has a pummel, like a Bravo, or someone has a Razor, like a Katsu, and they only have 1 card in hand, you're not in the reaction step yet. So you defend with this, and you basically say your reactions can't be played this turn. They still have it, and it's still a threat for next turn, but it helps save you from that on hit. So I think there's a couple cool things you could do with this, and I'm really excited to play this in Rhinar. It's my go-to legendary that I want. This one in the Runeblade chest are the 2 that I want the most. So hopefully I pull this in my boxes. But yeah. I think it's going to be super good in Rhinar. I think it'll be relatively cheap too, to be honest. I think it'll be like on the same, relatively. I think it'll be on the same level as like Scab Skins. But yeah, that's my top 10. Let me know what you think. I'd be really interested to hear other people's thoughts if there's other cards I may have missed. Obviously, this is just my 10 cards. There's other super impactful cards in the set, and you could go any which way. Super excited for that. So let me know what you think. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If not, let me know how I can do better. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.